the great Dan Fouts, who's with us here on Tiki and Tierney. Dan, how are you, buddy? What's happening?
Well, I'm all packed. I'm ready to go. I'm leaving today.
You're leaving today. Okay, and you're on the call with Kevin Harlan, I think, right, Kevin?
That is right.
He's good. We like Kevin. We've had him on the show. So do you like this trip? I mean, aside from, the travel for you, put that aside because, I'm sure it's far more arduous than your usual travel itinerary. What's your thoughts on the NFL in London? Where do you sit right now? We've seen it long enough. What does Dan Fouts think?
Well, I hope it's good for the league. It is tough on the players, though, and I always look at it from the player's standpoint. And when the Rams left right from Detroit and headed over there, so they've been there for a couple of days now. But still, it's a long way. And the interesting thing about the game is that you see fans from just about every team in the NFL. They're wearing their jerseys. It's kind of fun when you go drive up to the game to see all the different teams that are represented by the fans. So there is some interest there. They do sell out. But like I said, it is tough on the players. It's like those Thursday night games are tough on the players. They're not going to go away, and I don't think London is going to go away either.
No, you're probably right. Do you think there's ever going to be a team that locates there? We talk about it all the time. Could it be Jacksonville? And this competitive disadvantage that BT was alluding to becomes permanent. You think that ever happens?
That is a good question. You would think it would have happened already because it has been a while now for the NFL to be playing in London. But I think you'd have to have more than just one team in Europe. You might want to have to put a team in Berlin to at least have two teams so that London team doesn't every road game has to be at least 5 to 6 to 10 hours away.
Yeah, that'll get ratings up. I mean, come on. I mean, Berlin, Dan, you're right, logistically, but, I mean, that would just turn me off. Wow. Dan Fouts with us, of course. Dan's going to be in the booth for the Giants and the Rams coming up in London. All right, so you've been in the booth for a long time, and obviously your career speaks for itself. And so you've seen so much of the NFL, the evolution, the league in terms of business, far more sophisticated than when you were playing. And also the individuality of players is far more in our face, given social media, et cetera. You see somebody like Odell Beckham Jr. And his antics. You're the quarterback. I know you heard what Eli said. What's your take on some of the drama with the Giants? And we know he's a great player, but the other stuff, Dan, specific to how he comports himself on the field.
I think the key is team. And are you hurting the team by your antics? And there are times that he has done that. And then you look at what he did last week against the Ravens, 222 yards receiving, a couple long bombs, and you just shake your head. And so, after the second touchdown, he took his helmet off on the field, which is obviously, everybody knows that's going to be an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. So, again, the team had to kick off in a close game from the 20-yard line. So, that makes it a disadvantage for the ball club. So, you hope that he would understand. I've met with him before, and he's a smart kid. He's very genuine, loves to play the game. But there are, the diva that goes with being a receiver. You see it every week. These wide receivers, look at Antonio Brown and the things he does. Same type of problem. He produces, but then he also takes away from the team with some of his penalties.
Dan, do you think you would have been more assertive? Now, Eli's personality is kind of laid back and just, relatively benign. He does his job and he puts his head down and he keeps it down for the most part. If that was happening in Dan Fouts' huddle or around Dan Fouts' huddle, what would Dan Fouts do?
Well, he'd have a conversation. I would just stress the fact that we need every yard. This is a tough game. The field is 100 yards long. You're giving the other team 15 yards. That's a first down and a half, and on and on. You can just talk yourself blue in the face at times. But at some point, maybe, you don't want to say, I'm not going to throw you the ball, because if I do throw you the ball, you may go all the way for a touchdown. So It is a delicate situation. There's no question.
Yeah, you kind of need him. Talking to Dan Fouts, he's on the call Sunday in London, 9:30 Eastern, the kick. Giants and the Ravens, both teams 3-3. Giants coming off a win. Ravens with 3 straight wins to start the season. They haven't won since, and obviously football rolls on. CBS, you got Thursday Night Football, and that Packers and the Bears That is on CBS, the NFL Network, and Twitter as well.
Hey, Dan, let's look on the other side of this game over in London. The St. Louis Rams are 3-3. I think they've surprised some people with how well they playing. But we thought it would be on defense, solid, one of the best in the league, at least preseason. They're middle of the road, running the ball with Todd Gurley. It's got at the bottom of the league at 28th. How are they getting things done? Is the quarterback playing that well?
Well, he certainly played that well last week. Against Detroit, he only missed 5 passes out of 32, but they still lost that game. And part of the reason they lost the game is they couldn't punch it in from the 1-yard line on a 4th down. And you see that a lot more this season than I can recall. Teams failing to punch it in when they're close to the goal line. But it is, it starts up front for the Rams. That offensive line is still a work in progress. Greg Robinson at left tackle has had his issues, and I think that the quarterback controversy or the fact that Case Keenum beat out Jared Goff that may have a bit of a hangover for the Rams. But they're a dangerous team with a couple of big wide receivers, and Tavon Austin is really quick. So I expect Gurley to have a breakout game at some point. It could be this week, although I doubt it.
Yeah, do you think we'll see Goff at all this year?
Mm.
Well, you never say never because of injuries
of course,
and things like that. But right now, I don't know how you take out Case Keenum after how he performed against the Lions last week. I mean, he looked like he was back in college at Houston when he was throwing the ball over the place and making a name for himself.
Hey, Dan, one player, I want to jump around for a sec. Dan Fouts with us here on Tiki and Tierney. Matt Ryan, who even in defeat Sunday at Seattle, was superb. And the pick off Julio Jones' hands was certainly not, even though it goes under his ledger, not his fault, we know. And they missed the pass interference on Jones, on Sherman. He really made some poor decisions in the red zone last year that resulted in picks and really sabotaged the season a bit. I've always been a Matt Ryan fan. He lost some fans along the way because some people thought, maybe just not as good as we thought he was. In the grand scheme, where do you stand on Matt Ryan, and what is he doing differently this year, if anything, compared to last?
Well, I think it takes a while at times. He's had a couple of different coaching staffs, and people don't realize when you change a system, it does take a while to get it up and going, if it's a good system. I mean, some of those systems were too good. But, the maturity that he has with Julio Jones, the connection, it's similar to Andy Dalton and A.J. Green in Cincinnati where, you look at these guys and you say, how can you ever stop them? And for Ryan, I think it's a case of being comfortable in the system he's in, the maturity that he has attained, and now the relationship that he has not only with Julio but all his receivers. And, it also goes back to good pass protection. You don't put up all those yards when you're throwing, retreating all the time.
Yeah, they were soft for a couple of years, as you know. They really tightened up that offensive line at showing. That was some good, astute off-season moves, there's no doubt.
Yeah, another quarterback situation to keep an eye on this weekend. Geno Smith is getting a start in Todd Bowles' Jets. What do we expect from Geno? I don't like him at all. BT did for a little bit. Now I think he's done. What are we thinking now with the Jets and their quarterback situation?
Well, you hope that doesn't revert to his play of the past because there's a reason why he was backing up and lost the job to Ryan Fitzpatrick in the first place. So you guys kind of keep your fingers crossed that he has learned and also matured and we'll put some of those mistakes behind him. But it's a wait and see situation with the Jets. They're in a tailspin right now, and they need some type of spark, and maybe Geno can give it to him.
Yeah, and if he does, it's going to be temporary. Listen, this regime didn't draft him. I could see them, whether it's Hackenberg or probably Petty more so this year, maybe even picking a quarterback early in the draft if they're in the top 5 or 6, whether it's Watson or Kaiser if he comes out. The Jets need a quarterback. We all know that. I wanted to ask you something about Sam Bradford here. And I was doing something on TV the other day, Dan, on Tops, which you joined us on occasion. And I gave my 5. Of course, they basically all lost that day. So I guess I jinxed Matt Ryan. I jinxed Derek Carr. Everybody on my list lost. But I gave my top 5 MVP leaders at this point in the season before the start of Week 6. And I also put Sam Bradford, who didn't lose because they didn't play. And the reason I put Sam, I feel like we're in this, statistically driven That's all anybody cares about now. But to me, the literal definition of most valuable player, I think you know what it means, and I think I kind of latch on to the old school definition more so than most. And I submit that if they did not acquire him, and if he didn't play as well as he has and protect the football and stabilize a broken locker room after Teddy Bridgewater went down, that those accomplishments alone propels him into the MVP discussion. He won't win it, but I think he's done a terrific job for the Vikings. Where do you stand on Sam, and do you like him?
I don't. I could not agree with you more. What he has accomplished, coming over at the last minute as he did, and here are the Vikings, the only undefeated team in the league, and he's the quarterback. Plus, he doesn't have Adrian Peterson. A lot of credit has to go to Norv Turner, plain and simple. But the job that he's done with Sam has been phenomenal. But Sam fits Turner's offense. It's all about players fitting systems. And Sam Bradford is the perfect quarterback for this style of offense because he's got the big arm, he's accurate, he's fearless in the pocket, and he gets the ball down the field. And now he has weapons to get it down too. But again, what he had to overcome, emotionally throughout his career with the injuries, and then Philadelphia, them drafting Wentz, sending him a message, but not sending him away just yet, waiting for the best offer they could get. And they got a good offer. But I just couldn't say enough about, Bradford. I agree with you 100%. If they continue to play as they will, they're not going to go undefeated. But he will be in the conversation at the end of the year.
Well, listen, if Dan Fouts supports what I say, then I gotta think I have a pretty good position here. I'm feeling good about that, Dan. We appreciate some time. Have a safe flight over to London. I may have misspoke before. Obviously, it's the Rams. I said the Ravens by accident, but the Rams and the Giants, 9:30 Eastern. You and Kevin Harlan, a fun team, and of course, we'll see it on CBS. Thank you, Dan. We'll talk to you soon, pal.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Be good, Dan.
Okay, anytime. Oregon Duck, the great Dan Fouts.